Dear viewers, it's my pleasure to welcome in our program Vanessa Beeley, who is a well-known British investigative journalist and reporter. She has been writing articles about Syria for many years now. Hello and welcome to Syria Insider Weekly. Hi, how are you? Thank you. My first question is to you is about your general assessment and evaluation of the way Western media has been covering the current presidential elections. Why does it seem to be Western taboo for the people to elect their own president? Why should some countries like Netherlands, Germany deny Syrian citizens their constitutional right to vote at their embassies?
I think the simple answer to this is the West is a fraud. It's a fraud in many ways. There is no democracy in the West. We've witnessed this ourselves with the entire reaction to COVID-19. But also, as you rightly point out, while they are forcing their version of democracy onto Syria and other target nations like Iraq, like Libya, like Venezuela, like Iran, even Russia, and China, at the same time they deny real democracy to the Syrian people, because the Syrian people, the majority of the Syrian people, support the Syrian government and their president, as we will see probably on Thursday this week.
And of course you notice what happened in Lebanon.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, in Lebanon there were paid Western tools, instruments, paid to go and attack the Syrians who are trying to practice democracy outside Syria. And you have the same in Germany. In Germany they practice democracy by preventing Syrians from voting for their chosen candidates. Inside Germany, and other countries also did the same thing. So, as I say, diplomacy and democracy is dead in the West. It has been dead for some time, and their continuing promotion of their democracy is a fraud. Many things that the West is doing now is fraudulent.
I will ask you about the sanctions. In fact, that the latest sanctions imposed on Syria for the last 10 years, sometimes, most of the time affect the ordinary Syrian. So why do you think this is so? And to what extent the public opinion in the West aware of such vicious policies that seek to destroy society's community and wipe out civilization?
Look, I think now what we are witnessing from the West, and in particular from the UK and the US, is now a vindictive, brutal policy against the Syrian people. Why? Because Syria defeated the imperialist project that was waged against them for 10 years and that was planned many years before 2011. There is documentation to prove this. So now we have an imperialist cabal which is defeated effectively, and it is declining in power. And so what it wants to do is to punish the people of the country that defeated it. And Syria and its allies defeated the imperialist alliance. And so we see now this collective punishment of the Syrian people. And I want to mention to the viewers yesterday, when we were taking part in a procession before the presidential elections, I saw one man in the middle of the street with a plastic bag stop to pick up dry bread, old bread, from the ground and put it in his bag. This is what Western governments are doing to the Syrian people. They are starving them. They are depriving them of their right to return home because the rebuilding process is being delayed. They are, as I said, punishing the Syrian people for the resistance of the Syrian people against what they want to impose upon the Syrian people. And this is the result. It's nothing to do with the Syrian government. It's nothing to do with President Assad. It's nothing to do with the country. It's to do with the West punishing
their agendas.
The Syrian people. This is a very important message for sanctions are never ever non-lethal practices. They are almost the most lethal of all weapons used in the hybrid war against the people of a target nation. And we mustn't forget At the same time as the sanctions are in place, the West is stealing the oil, burning the food resources, selling the food resources outside of Syria, all to deprive the Syrian people of their own resources, of the riches of their own country, the abundance of their own country. Sanctions are designed to kill hope. And after the military victory in Syria, this is what they are trying to do, to kill the hope. But the elections, they will see that hope is still alive inside Syria.
Okay, thank you. And as an objective observer to the terrorist war waged against Syria over the last 10 years, and taking into consideration that your first-hand knowledge of the facts on the ground, where are we heading right now? Should we expect more tensions, more US and Israeli aggressions on Syria, or Syria is in fact getting stronger with the support and help of its ally, and we may see the light at the end of the dark tunnel soon?
Look, I think we are living through very historic times. Let's look at the resistance as a whole. Let's look at Yemen and at Syria and at Palestine. Mm-hmm. Syria has defeated the imperialist alliance. Yemen is defeating, let's say, another of the imperialist proxies, Saudi Arabia, with nothing. It's defeating Saudi Arabia. Palestine has just dealt a mortal blow to the Zionist entity. So when we look at the big picture, we see that Syria is at the heart, at the center of the resistance bloc against the imperialist cabal, okay? And the imperialist cabal led by the US, but Israel is basically a military outpost for the US and the UK and the EU in the region. Saudi Arabia, of course, has been funding terrorism inside Syria and globally. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing, I believe, the defeat, the end of empire. But of course, this is also a dangerous time, because there's a massive shift in power towards the resistance axis. And this includes, of course, Russia and China and Iran and Venezuela and South America, and it's huge. This is a very momentous time. And the fact that the elections are taking place at this time, for me, is something so important, because I really believe the message from the Syrian people on election day will be clear. And I visited myself in the last 2 days areas that previously were under control of the terrorists and who took amnesty. Okay. And I visited those areas like Al-Tal, Nim, in fact, Khabun. Okay. And what did I see? I saw demonstrations in favor of the president.
The president.
And no, these demonstrations were not forced, because of course this is what Western media will try to tell you, that yeah, but these people are forced to go and vote for their president. I have video footage of children, of women, of civilians, full of energy and determination to not only to vote for their president, but to vote for their country. This is what people don't understand. You can't separate the president and the army and the people. They are one entity. They are together. And this unity is what we are seeing now on the streets, where we go, when we see the posters, where we see people, despite the sanctions, celebrating.
So do you think the punishment will continue? I mean, the aggression, the US aggression and the Israeli aggression will continue? Or, Syria?
I think Israel has been mortally wounded by the Palestinian resistance. Israel and the US depends upon its image of being a superpower. And Palestine demonstrated it is not a superpower. It's weak. It's vulnerable. And Syria, even before the last war between Palestine and the Zionist entity, demonstrated the same thing by firing the missile towards Dimona.
Yes.
And the Iron Dome failed to bring it down. Yemen is attacking in central Saudi Arabia. It's attacking Aramco. It's attacking the electrical power installations. The Patriot systems are failing to bring down Yemeni missiles. So we are seeing all the weaknesses, all the vulnerabilities of this superpower, the super force. And so, yes, I believe there will be some reaction because it's dying.
Yes.
The empire is dying, and this is the time when actually it's at its most dangerous. And one thing I think is very important is the information war. The information war will become more important now, because it's all they have left. It's their last weapon.
Yes.
Is the information war. And this is where now the war is being fought by Syria, by Iran, by China, by Russia, by all the resistance bloc. It's the information war which will become very important.
So do you believe that we will see the light after the dark tunnel soon?
Sure, of course.
Why?
Why? Because, look, Syria represents all humanity for me. Syria has not been only fighting to defend Syria, it's been fighting to defend humanity. And we know if Syria falls, we all fall. So I think now what you are seeing is something so beautiful. We're seeing the resistance coming together. We're seeing all sections of that resistance coming together. Mm-hmm. And with unity comes power. And so I think in this unity, and we will see unity during the elections also, as I said, areas that before were under control of the terrorists, who were maybe against the government, but who now understand that the only way Syria can survive is through unity, is through integration.
Stability.
So we are definitely seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate it. And we really appreciate your support. Thank you very much.